Oh, what's up GameLeap? It's Coach OPness is back at it. I didn't actually realize how that sounded until you guys raved about it in the comments of our last video. But yeah, hope you're looking forward to the changes we are about to reveal. And yes, in this video, we have the full rundown of the 11.9 patch changes that were released today. So if you want to know what Riot has in store for the 11.9 patch, which is just over a week away, then this video is all you need. I'm going to be breaking down in detail all of the champion buffs, the champion nerfs, the item buffs, the item nerfs, how these will affect the meta, and whether it will be worth playing these champions in the near future. Now, as per guys, I want you to tell me your thoughts on any of the changes we mentioned, in particular if your champion is affected by any, and just a quickie, make sure to check out the GameLeap website. You see, unlike other sites guys, we upload fresh daily content. It's not recycled from YouTube, it's challenger tier, it's informative, it's original, so do yourself a favor and get signed up. Links as always in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it, and we're going to start with the 9 champion buffs, and those coming to Kog'Maw. And I know lots of you are expecting another Kog Lulu meta. Well, these buffs don't really suggest that's going to happen. So your Q will lower the armor and magic resist of the target it hits by more, but this is tricky to hit anyway, especially in the laning phase. And your E's mana cost may be down 20 at all ranks, but is this going to stop you from dying? That's the question, and the answer is still no. I mean, maybe it makes your harass and poke a bit more annoying in lane, but these buffs don't address the problems Kog has. Now, the next buff is more significant, guys, and this is to Lulu. And by the way, you Lulu and spellcasting supports are going to want to stick around for the item buffs, so your W will be up a second earlier at each rank, and you're also giving more attack speed at earlier ranks. Now this is important because late game all of these supports, you know, Lulu, Janna, Sona, Soraka, are very hard to deal with because they have low cooldowns. So by making Lulu's early and mid game stronger, it's like she doesn't have a weakness at all. For attack speed based champions too, this is obviously really good, so Jinx, Kog'Maw, what a surprise, and Vayne. And for any bot lane carry, if your Lulu can polymorph more often, then you're going to die less. Now up next we have 2 top laners guys getting some love, and the first is Shen, whose ultimate shield is now going to scale off his base health as well, meaning that as the game progresses, the bigger this shield will be because the more HP you will have. Now this is good because late game Shen does fall off, so adding some value in that department is a positive. And the second top laner is Sett, who lots of players find difficult to deal with anyway, and these 2 buffs are legit. So your W's damage is higher for every 100 AD you have, which is good for the mid to late game, and your ultimate's bonus AD ratio is up 20%, another mid to late game buff. So basically, if you build Bruiser Sett with a bunch of AD, you are going to hit harder, and you guys are definitely going to want to stick around for the item buffs as well because some of these are helping you out too. So those were 2 top laners. Well, why don't we talk about the 3 junglers getting buffed, and let's start with Kayn and specifically his Rast form or Red Kayn. And honestly, I was expecting a bigger buff here, but still, the fact both of your Q's slashes are dealing 130% of your total AD instead of 110%, this is nice. And like Sett, some 11.9 item buffs are also helping you Kayn mains out. And then the next jungler we have is Kindred, and these changes look very impactful. So your Q's cooldown is down a second, which means your clear speed will be better, as will your dueling, which was already good, and its damage is up at later ranks too, and seeing as you max this first, you will get access to this early on. Now guys, if this means Kindred can now full clear like the other OP junglers, I wouldn't be surprised if she was picked a lot more at MSI, just because her ultimate is amazing at countering all the damage in this meta, especially in a coordinated team environment. And last of the junglers guys is Trundle, and this buff is really going to help you trolls gank lanes and actually get kills because your E's slow is higher at early ranks, so you can just put 1 point in it, but the issue remains for Trundle. Clearing jungle counts with multiple creeps, so Krugs, Raptors, walls, and this doesn't change that. This might even bring support Trundle into the fray, who knows. Now the only mage getting buffed in 11.9 guys is Xerath, but this buff is a biggie. So your Q's base damage might be down 10 at all ranks, but it's scaling with 90% of your AP, not 75%. And this is huge because the more AP you get, the more damage you're going to deal, and it might even be worth building Death Cap as your second major item now. And then your W's base damage is higher at later ranks, and its scaling is 5% higher. So how do I put this? Well, mid to late game, you are going to be hitting as hard as anyone. But I hate to be the party pooper as well. Your damage as Xerath guys wasn't why you were struggling. You see, you don't have enough peel to survive at the moment. It's that simple. Kind of similar to Kog'Maw. You might have the damage in there, but you don't have that survivability. Now the final buff we have to talk about guys is coming to Taric, whose Q is costing less mana at later ranks. But if you build a tier, which is what most Tarics do because Presence of Mind is now trash on him, the mana cost reduction is just redundant, so this could be the most useless buff out of the bunch. So those are the buffs, guys, but it's time to do a 180 and talk about the upcoming champion nerfs just around the corner, and there are 10 of them. And the first set of nerfs, guys, are coming to Hecarim, and you might as well call this patch the deletion of Hecarim. So your base armor is down, meaning your early game is weaker. You're going to lose more HP in the jungle and in fights, and even if your armor per level is up, this won't make up for the base loss until much later in a game. Your Q's rampage stacking is less than half of what it previously was, which again affects your clear and fighting, but your W is now going to heal you based on the damage you and your allies deal as well. What a silver lining that is. But the biggest nerf is this one right here. Your E's minimum base damage is down 45 at minimum distance and 90 at maximum distance. So if you're charging from river, let's say, to a lane to gank it, you are going to be hitting that target for a lot less damage. And again, this even worsens your clear. And if you do main Hecarim, guys, you're also going to want to stick around for the item nerfs. Now, two other nerfs coming to junglers are to Diana and Morgana, guys, who will thankfully still be viable. So for Diana, your passive attack speed is down a little at earlier levels, but it's still a buff from 11.8, but you are losing some armor per level and health regen, so you will be a little easier to kill. And as for Morg, well, this nerf is one of the best Riot have ever made because they are only reducing your W's damage to monsters by 15%, so in the big picture, it's actually still a buff from 11.8, and you still have easily enough damage, just like Diana, to full clear as quick as anyone. Now, speaking of mages, let's talk about 3 others who are getting hit in 11.9. And the first is, can you believe it, Vladimir, who is the strongest champion on the Rift at the moment. So Riot are taking away some of that Q cooldown at later ranks, and I can't believe they did this because I thought they were going to completely ruin Vlad, but this is good. It's still lower than what it was previously, and even though you're still going to be OP, you're not going to be banned as much, so yeah. I rarely say this, but good job, balance team. Now, another nerfed mage is Rumble, and this is still going to see the Junkyard Yordle played in the mid lane, so much for me praising Riot. So your autos will deal less damage when you're overheating, but the fact you're still gaining 50% attack speed is the key detail and why Rumble is stomping at the moment. And last of the mages, guys, we have Heimerdinger, who has really thrown a spanner in the bot lane recently because of his synergy with Fasting Senna. And instead of nerfing Fasting Senna, Riot have gone after the less played champion and nerfed his W's damage at later ranks and its max damage. And seeing as you max this first, this weakens your lane harass and damage generally. So pretty questionable from Riot here. And if there are any Donga mains watching, what do you guys think about this? Now, I mentioned Jinx earlier, guys, and how she'll enjoy playing with a buffed Lulu. Well, she will, that's for sure, but your crit splash damage on your rockets has now been bug fixed to its proper value. But nothing to worry about here, you're still one of the premier marksmen. Now, the final 3 champions getting nerfed, guys, are 3 top laners, and honestly, these are some of the most minimal nerfs in these patch notes. So for Garen, your slap on the wrist is a W nerf, so each stack you get for killing an enemy, you're getting less armor and magic resist, but the maximum amount you can get is staying the same. It will just take a little longer to reach. For Gragas, your E's damage is down at later ranks, but if you're playing top lane Gragas, damage isn't really what you're after. It's all about sustain and cooldown, so little changes. And then we have Dr. Mundo, who has been one of the best top laners since his changes in 11.8. And you're still going to go where you please because none of these buffs are getting reverted, and you're only losing a bit of armor and AD per level. So okay, your scaling is a little worse, but still, most of your power is still there. So those are the champion buffs and nerfs, guys, and as we get into the much anticipated item buffs and nerfs, it is my last friendly reminder to check out the GameLeap website for all your League of Legends needs. This season, we have up to meta challenger tier content that is designed for you to help you become one of the best. It's OG, it's red hot, so get signed up, links down below. Now for the item buffs, guys, and there are 4 of these, and the first is the Moonstone Renewer. So your base heal is stronger, which means the initial item spike is better, and as I said earlier, these spellcasting supports who build Moonstone really come into their own later in the game, so having more impact early on is a legit buff. Now the next 2 we have Death's Dance and Wit's End, and set mains, Viego mains, even Hecarim mains, Aurelia mains, all you bruisers and fighters out there, it's time to listen up. So for the DD, it's AD and armor up, and it's already a strong item into the right team comp. And as for Wit's End, it's now building out of a longsword, and as a result, you're getting an extra 10 AD. And remember, most of the changes we talked about, guys, like Set for example, your abilities are dealing more damage based off your bonus AD, and this goes for any abilities in the game that do the same. So 2 pretty juicy bruiser buffs here. And last up, we have Sunfire Aegis, which is dealing more damage to monsters, which will help Sejuani, Zac, and a few other tanks out in the jungle in terms of clearing camps in the mid to late game. So last on the list, guys, we have the item nerfs, and there are just 2 of these. So the first is coming to Turbo Chem Tank, and you're losing movement speed and it's active, but seeing as it will cost just 2800 gold still, and give you the same damage to monsters as Sunfire, and ability haste in its mythic passive, or you Skarner mains and Rammus mains and every other Chem Tank user, it's still a strong mythic. And the second and last item item nerf is the Dead Man's Plate. So you're losing 100 HP, which means you're easier to bring down, so Darius, Set, Rammus, Udyr, but you are still keeping the movement speed and slow from its passive, so its real value is still in there. So those were the 11.9 changes, guys, and again, any thoughts, any comments, any rage, any tilt, any happiness, let out the emotion in the comments. And as you scroll down to type up a storm, remember to hit that sub button if you haven't already, and the bell as well. And until tomorrow's video, this has been Coach J's. Peace.